Personnel selected, Dave, toy restoration expert and YouTuber. Channel codename toy-polloi.
Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're going to be looking at repairing these vintage M.A.S.K Slingshot vehicles that were very kindly sent in to me by Simon. Now both of these have issues, but I'm hoping that using the two I should be able to make one good one, one vehicle that actually works, actually transforms and does everything it needs to do. So first up, let's take a closer look at them and then we'll see what's wrong with them and see if we can actually work out a way to fix them. So yeah, as I say, these were very kindly sent in by Simon recently. You can see the figure it comes with is Ace Riker. He has his M.A.S.K and he is in really good condition, so there's nothing we need to do to him. But the Slingshot vehicle, this RV that has a plane inside, suffers with quite a few problems. So I'm hoping that using the two of these we can make one that works. So we'll start with the plane just because that is sort of easily accessible inside it. This should launch via a button here that you sort of press and it will ping up. This is not looking too bad. It's a little bit dirty. It actually comes with its missile, which I think worked. If I press the button there, it does. But the issue we have with this is the wings don't actually sort of spring out properly. You can see part of them work. This right side one or left side one, the spring is working. This one doesn't work at all. It's just sort of loose. So we're going to have to take that apart. It's also got fairly rusty screws on the bottom and a little bit of fading there. But overall, that's not too bad. So we just got to work out why this spring mechanism isn't working on that. Then we come on to the main toy. Now this one does have some serious problems. It's missing one part. There's supposed to be a bracket here to lift this sort of launch section up. That doesn't work. The actual panels of the vehicle, when you push them in like that, should click in place, but they don't. There's a button on the back that you press which should unlock them and sort of spring them open. That is broken, or something's gone on, so these don't shut properly, so we're going to have to work out how to fix that. Then I think there's also a mechanism that when you push this forwards and backwards, this gun turret is supposed to rotate, and you can see it sort of rotates even if I push this up, but it's not working particularly well, so we're going to have to try and fix that. That we have missiles at the front or guns at the front that rotate out, so those aren't looking too bad. So yeah, there's general issues with that one that need fixing, so we're going to have to take the whole thing apart to work out what's going on. I do have this spare one here, which I will put there so you can see it. If I press the button on the back, that is how those doors are supposed to open. So from this one we can work out why that one isn't working. This does also have the launcher section which works. You can see that works nicely, and that's because it has this bracket. So we're going to take the bracket off this one and fit it on that one. The inside section here you can see is broken as well, so that's why this bit falls off. That can be fixed, but I'm probably not going to cover that today because I just want to get one of them working. So I think the first thing to do before we even start taking these apart is give them a good clean. You can see this one is pretty filthy, so I'm going to try and take as many parts off as I possibly can, and then we'll give this a clean and make sure it looks nice and tidy, and then we can start fixing it. So to get this apart, it looks like you just have to unclip these back sections like so. Yeah, that's right, and then we can pull this along, and I'm going to guess that unclips. Yeah, so there you go, that bit is unclipped. We've got another panel in here which looks like it unclips, and this piece here, so how is that held on and how did that get broken? Oh right, so that is clipped on as well. Looks like that should just unclip somehow. Oh yeah, right, so that is the piece that's missing off the other one, so that's actually the key piece, and then everything else is screwed together. So now that's like that, we can just give that a clean. I'm going to use hot soapy water and a toothbrush, generally just sort of give it a wipe over and get all the dust and dirt out, and I'll do the same to this one at the back. We can take all the pieces off this one and then make everything look as clean as possible. I think the little jet here, all we need to do is take that cockpit off, which again should just unclip, and we'll give that a clean. So yeah, let's get everything cleaned and then we'll start taking these things apart and seeing if we can fix them. Okay, so everything has now had a good clean and it's all dry and it's already looking a lot better. There are a few marks all over the outside of the sort of white part of the van. Those have come off using a magic eraser and it's really looking pretty tidy. So I've got two very nice sort of shells of vehicles. All we've got to do now is fix them up. So the first thing I want to fix up is this little plane. It's obviously sort of partially working. This wing flips out quite nicely, this one doesn't. So yeah, let's just open this up and see what we can do to fix it. Okay, so here is the vehicle. As I showed you, one of the wings works, the other one doesn't. So there must be a spring inside that's maybe unclipped or something like that, or maybe something has broken on this wing. Not quite sure, but there are 3 screws on the bottom. So let's just undo those and see what we find. There's a little bit of rust on these screws, so we'll give them a bit of a clean before we put it back together. Not too much, just appears to be on the surface. So we can use a contact cleaner just to rub that off and tidy them up. But yeah, let's see what's inside this. Sometimes spring-loaded toys, when you open them up, the springs tend to fire everywhere, so I will be a little bit careful. See what happens with this one. Right, so there's the 3 springs. Let's see what happens when we take the top of this off. Okay, all right, well look, I can see straight away we've got a broken clip on that wing, so that's the reason that isn't working, and that's going to be fairly awkward to repair as well. I have to have a little think about that. That's a really awkward thing to replace. It's got to be really strong and it's really tiny. Otherwise, everything else looks fairly normal. So there's the spring that does that. Let's take that out. We've got a few other bits. There's another spring there. What's that spring for? All right, that locks everything onto the vehicle. There's a weight at the front of it to keep it... well, yeah, why would you need a weight at the front of it? I guess to keep it sort of held down. That's a fairly heavy weight. Yeah. Let's pull that out. Yeah, not a lot else. There's, what's that there? There's something broken there, but I can't see if that's key for anything. Let me have a little bit more of an inspect and I'll see what I can come up with. Okay, so I've had a good look now and I think I've worked out what's gone on and what needs fixing. There was a tiny little plastic hook on this wing here which is snapped off. On the other side there's a sort of more involved little bracket that this spring fits into. So as you can see, the spring's got a sort of bent end to it and that goes in that little slot there. And then on this side, it's supposed to hook on a tiny hook. And that mechanism then sort of makes it that these wings want to spring apart. The spring is fairly strong, probably over strong for what is needed. And just what's happened over the years is that this bit of plastic has got weak and it's snapped off. I did have the bit of plastic, but I've already lost it. It's such a tiny piece. So what we've got to do is make something new for this spring to hold on to. And this sort of plastic won't work with plastic weld. You can see it's got a sort of flex to it. It's not the right sort of plastic. So I'm going to make something out of metal. And I actually have this sort of thin metal rod out in my garage. This is a modelling rod. You can get this from most model shops. So what I've done is I've bent the end of it, and I think that will hook quite nicely over this spring. And I'm going to very carefully now drill a hole into the remains of this original hook, and I'll cut a piece of that and I'll insert it in, so we end up with a new metal hook where the plastic one should be. And I'm hoping there's enough plastic around it to give it some strength, and that will do the job, and that will hold everything as much as it sort of needs to for this spring to work. So what I've got here is a small drill bit in my pin vise, and I'm going to very carefully drill a hole in there. We'll cut some of this metal rod, insert it in. I'll put a bit of super glue on it as well just to hold it in place, and I'm hoping that will work. But there's only one way to find out, and that is to try it. So let's get this all fitted and see what happens. Okay, so there you go, that's what I've done. It's a metal hook where a plastic hook used to be. It's a bit crude, but it feels fairly sturdy, and that's really what we need on this. You want a fairly sturdy build because that spring is quite strong, and I can't see an easy way of reducing the sort of springiness of that. So let's just try it. We have to put the two wings together, so those clip like that. Then there's a post on, this is the top section of the little plane, so we drop that over there. Then we get the spring, and as I showed, there is a sort of a bent end to it, and that goes in the little slot on that side. And then we stick the main part of the spring over the post in the middle, and now we've got to sort of load this up or put that other end of the spring onto my new hook like that. Right, and that's not looking too bad. That's certainly held in place. Let's try and move these wings. Yeah, they're working. You can see that they're now both springing out. So I think that is going to work. Hopefully that will hold. So we can now go ahead and sort of start putting the rest of this vehicle back together. The bottom section I didn't really take apart, and it's fairly straightforward to see where everything goes. So we've got this weight at the front. We can take this out. It does sort of all ping apart. As I said, some of these toys do tend to ping apart like that. So you've got this little sort of spring-loaded button that goes in the bottom there. And I've just sort of rested that on that point. We have this piece, which is the hook for the missile, which goes through the hole in the middle there. And then once that's on, you take this section and sort of line it all up. It's a little bit awkward to do, but it does all line up. It might be better actually if I put this the other way up, like that. Let's try it the other way up. And then that piece goes like that. Then we'll take this section, and that should all sort of lay over the top, and everything needs to come through the correct holes in the bottom. And then it does all clip together, which is the strange part of it. That clip goes there. That bit goes there. We can turn this over. Then you've got to sort of move this whole section forwards a bit. Line it all up with the sort of the screw holes. And then this front section sort of clips in. That's the bit that was sort of confusing me a bit. Oh, you can sort of push it back. There we go. And that clips in. And that's all lined up. Yeah, it's a fairly sort of strange construction, but it does go together. Then we get the weight, and that drops in there. And then all of this has to sort of go together with this without anything falling out. Let's try that. See if we can line everything up. Yeah, it's a really awkward construction, but then most of these toys are. There's bits that go everywhere. To close that a bit. Oh, there you go. It does all fit together. So there you go. That's it all clipped together. Now, probably what I should have done before doing all of that, just check these do actually work. Oh yeah, look at that. They do. And they spring out to the right positions. We need to clean the screws. I'll just put that to one side. And to clean the screws, all I'm going to use is a contact cleaner, which is this abrasive sort of thing. It's made out of glass fibre. I'll take the screws. I'm going to hold them in a pair of pliers because this stuff is quite nasty. If you get it on your skin, it will stick in and it will really hurt. So you want to use either some thick gloves or just do it so that you don't actually touch anything, and don't touch the remnants of the glass fibres that come off. But you can see here, this is a fairly sort of rusty looking screw, and I can just rub this contact cleaner over the top of it. And you can see it cleans the rust off. So I'm just going to quickly clean the rust off all of these, and then we'll screw that back together, and I think that ship's pretty much done. Okay, so that is now back together, and those seem to be working. Both of those wings spring out quite nicely. You can spring them individually. Yeah, that's going to hold really well. You see I've cleaned the screws, so all we need to do now is put this cockpit back on, and that should just clip in there like so. There's the missile that goes underneath, so that hooks in there and then hooks on that little hook. Feels like it holds in place. If I press the button, that does drop out. Yeah, so there we go. That is the sort of the plane section, the little glider or whatever you want to call it. Hypersonic jet or supersonic jet, something like that. We can even put the figure inside, and I think he's a fairly tight fit in here, but it does fit. Squeeze him in like so. Yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. That is all working. So let's go on to the main Slingshot vehicle and see if we can get that back together. Right, so here is the one that I really want to get working, because this has the least broken on it, although none of the mechanisms work. There's a button here that's supposed to move these little clips. You can see not a lot happens when I press that button, so that's a bit strange. If I bring in the other one, where it does work, if I press the button on there, you can see those clips move quite a lot. This one has damage to the inside, which is why I can't use it, but you can see that one works quite well. Also on this one, when you shut the vehicle together, it does actually shut, and then there's another button on the back here, and you press that and it pings open. This one, none of that works. So if you shut the vehicle together, one half doesn't want to actually stay in place and the other half doesn't have any spring to it at all. And when you press the button, not a lot happens. It's all sorts of a bit loose and floppy. So we're going to have to work out what's going on. And to get into this vehicle, I can see there are 6 screws. You've got 2 there, 2 there, and then there's 2 sort of hidden under the turret. So let's take those off and see what happens. I'll probably do the same on the other vehicle at the same time, and then we can work out what's going on. We've also got to make this turret move. Supposedly when you wheel this wheel at the back here, the turret should move around. It does a bit, but you can see it's not particularly wanting to go. So there's obviously something wrong with that as well. Let's just open this up and see what it looks like inside, and see see if we can work out why it's not working. Now that I've taken it apart, I can clearly see how it works, and I think I've worked out what's gone wrong with it. It's a fairly complicated mechanism. In fact, there are 3 mechanisms on top of each other. We have these clips here, which are the ones that lock down the sort of the raising bar, and that has a little button here that you push. Actually, if I hold that there and push it, you can see it's moving that bar back and forwards, and there's a spring there that sort of pulls it back into place. I'm not quite sure why that one wasn't working. It looks like it works fine, so it may be just something has sort of become misaligned. So that's the first mechanism. Then we have the mechanism that opens up the side panels, which is this mechanism here, and the button is here. So when you push this button, it pushes on this plate here and rotates that down using this very large spring. In fact, if I hold that there, I can twist this by hand, and you can see it pulls that whole mechanism back, and then these 2 little arms using some gears flip up. And what's happened on one side, the top of that little sort of clipping mechanism has snapped away, so it's missing. That side looks fine. You can see there's 2 little bars, and those sort of go either side of this bar on this side panel. On this side, I don't know if you can see it, but the top of those bars is missing. So that is a bit of a problem, but luckily I have the spare, so I'm gonna have to take that apart and see if that is working. So that mechanism does work. I think a lot of this stuff was just sort of misaligned. Maybe someone had taken this apart to see if they could fix it before, and that's probably why it wasn't working. Then we have this final mechanism that moves the turret. So if I bring in the top part here, this is the turret, and there's just a gear on the bottom of it. The 2 springs on either side are actually for this mechanism to sort of raise up the whole of that section. That is spring loaded, and that's what's locked down by those 2 clips there. That bit that looks fine on here, I'm going to say it's just that the wheels are loose. When you turn the wheels, you can see the gears do turn quite freely, but if I hold that gear, you can actually turn this wheel without the gear moving. So it looks like that gear is sort of loose on the axle. Maybe it's supposed to be like that. I have a feeling it probably is, to stop you being able to brake it, but this one just seems particularly loose. So I'll have a look at the other one when I take that apart. But overall, everything actually seems all right. We've got one breakage here. So if I take the other one apart, I'll see if there's sort of spare parts in that one that we can use to sort of make one good one. So let's take that apart. I'm also going to take this section apart, because you can see on this one there's a bit of damage to this. So I'm going to take this apart and see if I can swap them out. There's a couple of screws just there that look like if I undo those screws, this whole section should come away, but we just have to keep an eye where these springs go, because there are some quite sort of hefty springs to lift this mechanism up. But yeah, I'll take the other one apart and we'll see what that one looks like. Okay, so I've now taken both of them apart, and it appears they're both broken in exactly the same way. So this is the second one, and you can see here, if I rotate this mechanism back again, that the top of that clip is also missing, so it's snapped off there as well. So I'm not going to be able to use this one for spare parts because the part is broken in pretty much the same way. I'll have to work out a different way of fixing that. I don't think I'm going to be able to sort of fix it just with some plastic. I'm sort of thinking I might make a loop of elastic or something that holds on to the sort of outer door bit, but I'll have a little think about that. But otherwise everything else in this looks pretty much the same. The only difference is if I rotate this rear wheel, you can see that those gears are moving, and if I hold that gear, I can't actually rotate the rear wheel. So I was right, that wheel is actually loose on that one. That's why the sort of turret doesn't work, and it's not going to be easy to take the wheels off this one and swap them. So I think I'll have to just put a bit of super glue on something on the axle and try and lock that wheel back in place so that it works. But yeah, otherwise that's been very interesting. Although it looks the same, it's given me much more information just because I can see exactly that they're broken in the same way. So before I put this one back together, I want to remove the turret, because this turret is in much better condition than the one that I want to keep. I can't keep the whole of this top section because you can see there is a clip missing here. So I need the bottom part of this one and the turret of this one. So let's try and take this turret off and see what happens with all of those springs when we come to undo the screws. Right, so again, just 2 screws here. Let's undo these. I'm going to sort of keep an eye on what happens with the springs underneath, because they're the bits that are going to be awkward to put back in. So when you undo anything, just sort of try and keep an eye on what happens where things ping. I have a feeling they might sort of shoot out in all directions just because everything's under a bit of pressure here, but we'll see once I've undone these screws. Okay, so let's see what happens. Is there another screw there or something? I can feel there's something at the back of this. Oh, there's a post that has snapped. Oh, okay. That's interesting. There's a little post there that looks like it's glued in place, so maybe we'll have to glue that as well. But otherwise, that hasn't come out yet, so it's still held in. Maybe I can get away with just replacing this top section. I think that's probably what I'll do. I'm going to leave those as is. Sometimes if you don't have to undo a toy, don't undo it, because it will end up causing you a few more issues. So it looks like I can actually just leave this as is, and I'll just swap this top section. So let me get the other one and we'll do a little bit of a replacement. There we go, so that's the other one. Looks like it's broken in exactly the same spot, so maybe that's not really necessary to glue. Looks like the screws probably will hold it on okay. So that's the damaged one. You can see there's a little bit of damage on the corner. This is the one I wanted to replace it with, and while I've got everything in pieces, I'm just going to give one final little dust in there. Get some of the dust that was awkward and couldn't be got out with washing. So give that just a little dust. And then we'll pop this one back on and just screw it in place. Okay, so that was nice and simple. That just needed replacing. I didn't have to undo any of the mechanism. So that's the sort of final version of that. We've got the 2 clips at the front. We've got a nice turret section at the back. So I've been pondering this for a while to see if I could work out a way to repair that broken clip, and I've been messing around with the sort of spares one that I have here, and it turns out actually you don't need to do anything. That clip, although it's broken, the whole mechanism still works. If you get it all lined up properly and sort of put back in so the gears actually line up, then the mechanism just works with that part missing. So you can see here, this is the sort of busted one. I've just put back together quickly. Press the button on the back, both of the wings spring open, and then when you close them, the locking mechanism then just sort of pushes back into place. So we've got the button here, and I'll do it again, and it works. So I was sort of thinking that I would have to fix it, but it just appears that you can get away with the fact that clip is broken. As long as we line everything up correctly, the mechanism will just work. So I think what had happened with this is at some point maybe a child had sort of pulled it or done something to it, and these gears had actually got out of sync, which is why this one never closed. So if we put it back together correctly, it should just work. Likewise, I think the reason that this mechanism here, the one that sort of unlocks the turret part of it, that again, something had happened. Maybe someone had taken this apart and it had just got out of sync, and so that's the reason why nothing was working. So let's put this back together properly with everything lined up. I'll show you how to do that in a second, and I think it should just work even with the broken clip. Okay, so here it is all apart, and I've taken all the pieces out, so we're going to put this together from scratch. There's a spring at the bottom, and you can see I've got some boxes here. This is to rest these side panels on, because the side panels have to be sort of rested at the right angle once everything's together. So this is the main part of the mechanism, so it's got some gears on either side, and there's a little bar here that we have to hook this rather strong spring onto, and getting this in place is a little bit awkward. This little post here has to sit behind that wall, so we hook the spring on and then just sort of force it down into the right position like that, and then that should just sit in place. It's not going anywhere. In this position it's not under too much tension. We then take these pieces, which are the sort of the bits that move the walls of the van, and they have to go up a certain way. So you can see there's these two little posts sticking out, and those are at the top. And we just rest those on there and line the first gear up. We don't sort of rotate anything on this middle section, we just rest that in place. Here is the broken one, and as I say, it appears it doesn't actually matter that that is broken, so we're just going to rest that on there, line up that first gear like that. So nothing is now under tension, these are all loose. Now we take the wall panels, and that has to sort of clip between the two posts on the unbroken one, that little section there. So we can put that down, and then we can sort of rest it. This is why I've got all the bits of my toolboxes and other things, because we can then rest that like that. It's not going to fall over. We'll do the same on this side. So this little sort of loop here has to rest on that post. That's the broken one. Again, I've got toolboxes and stuff here just so I can drop that down and rest it in place. That's everything back how it should be. The lever doesn't move because we've not taken anything out of there, and I've already set the other two little clips in place where they should be. That's fairly straightforward to do. That little bar just goes between two sort of holes on either side, and then this clip section here, I can take it out just to show you. This clip section here then just hooks over the clip like so. Then there's the bar at this end that just needs to go into the relevant slot. Fairly obvious where that goes. So now we've got to get the middle section on, but without moving any of this. This is where it gets awkward. They must have had special sort of setups in the factory at Kenner to put this all together, making sure everything was all lined up. So we'll take this sort of inside section, and we can now drop this over the top, lining it up with all the holes, the screw holes and everything. Just giving it a gentle wiggle. I don't want to move anything out of place. There you go, that's gone in, so you can see the clips have come through there. The side panels are still in the right position, so now I can screw this whole thing together, and then it should just work. I can't see any reason why this won't work. There didn't seem to be anything else wrong on the inside of this one. It was just misaligned. So hopefully fixing all this misalignment, it will just work. Okay, so it's the moment of truth. Those are all screwed in place now. So if I shut this up, does it lock? It now does lock. Previously it wouldn't lock. So I do think it was just the gears and stuff not lined up in the right position. So if I press the button, these should ping open, which they do. So yeah, that broken clip on that side is not important. It doesn't matter if it's broken. It's really the alignment of all the gears, and that was what was up with this one. We can also now check to see if these little clips move out the way when I press the button, which they do. So I would say someone has probably taken this apart before, or something has happened to it, and that was the reason why nothing was working. So now we can go ahead and see if we can sort out this rear gunner chair thing that's supposed to move. Although it does seem to be moving now. I think maybe we'll just leave that. I could put a little bit of glue on that axle, but it does seem to be working. So again, that could have been a misalignment issue. I'm not really sure why that is suddenly working, but as it is, I'll just leave it. It's pleasing that it's working again.
Toy-polloi.
We can now go ahead and put the rest of the pieces back in. I'm just going to take the best of the bits I have. So here is the sort of front grille, which also has some guns on it. I've got two of these, both in fairly similar condition. The only difference is this one has a sticker on it, so I'm going to use the one with the sticker. I will have to replace some stickers on this, which I will do shortly. But if I've got some original stickers, I might as well use them. So that needs to clip on there. There are two clips either side. It looks like these are fairly weak, so do go carefully when clipping this back in. Just clip that one back on like that. So that's that front panel. So in the RV mode, that's how it should look. Once you transform it, then this should clip round, and we've got some guns sticking out the front, so that's all good. Then we come back to this rear turret. So we have this section here, which looks like it just clips on to these two posts on either side. I think it goes this way round, so let's just do that. Oh, well, I can see there's some little pegs on either side of that, so clip that one on there. Turn this round, clip that one on there. So that works, and that's spring loaded, and that does lock in place now. So if I press that button, we'll see if that unlocks, which it does. That's good. We then have the sort of, I'm going to say it's like a gun, but also it's the sort of plain mount section. So we've got two of those. Again, I'll take the better looking of the two, so it's that one. And that looks like we've got some clips on this bar here that hook into these little slots here, and then we've got a couple of pegs as well that go into the back section there. Let's just clip everything on and in place. Oh yeah, that's really quite straightforward. And then we'll clip these down at the bottom here, like so. Yeah, that's all working. So this will be now spring loaded. Yeah, that's good. So if I push that down, it should clip in place onto this bottom clip, which it does. And I'll press the button and that launches up. And then we have one final sort of little control panel that goes in the middle. Again, I've got two of these. Let's take the one that looks the sort of best condition of the two. Actually, they're much the same, so it doesn't really matter. And again, this clips into, there's two little holes here, so we just clip that in like so. So that's the sort of control panel when this is in the gun turret mode. And then when you flip this down, I think that's supposed to rotate over or something. Oops, maybe I got that round the wrong way. It's supposed to sit like that. I think I got it round the wrong way, so let's put that in that position. Oh, right, yes, that's right. I had it round the wrong way. So when you flip that up, this then rotates down. Oh, so the stickers actually are facing forwards. I thought they would face the pilot, but they don't. They face forward. So that's right. So we push that down, that rotates, and that all clips in place like so. Yeah, so there we go. That is the RV back together. Now we can deal with the stickers. We're missing quite a few stickers. You can see there should be headlights and all sorts of number plates, everything. It's all missing. So I found a sticker sheet online, or scan of an old sticker sheet online. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that into Photoshop and I'll work it up, tidy it up, and make a new version that I can print out. And then we'll get all of those stickers put back to make this look how it should do. Okay, and here is the sticker file that I've made. This is printed out onto glossy sticky backed printer paper. If you want to get these for yourself, then this file will be available for free on toy-polloi.com. I'm now going to cut these all out and stick them on the Slingshot and make it look as good as new. So yeah, let's get cutting. And there we go, it's now all back together, and those stickers just make a big difference. It just really brings the sort of vehicle to life. I've only replaced the ones that were missing. Anything that was on there originally that's a bit sort of rough and ready, I've left as is, just because I think it just gives this toy a nice age. But let's try this and see if it works. So if I press the button on the back, the panel should flip open, which they do. We then press this button on the back and that should release the ship. It should rise up and these wings should ping out. It's a little bit full on this just because of the springs they've used, so things do tend to fly around, but let's try that. So there we go, that has launched up. Let me put that back on the little launching mechanism, and the wings have sprung out. We can fold these guns down here, and if I move it back and forwards, it should rotate this top section, I believe. It does, there you go, it is rotating. I think the weight of this ship stops it rotating fully, so if we take this off like so, maybe if we rotate this now when it's just the gun section, I can rotate the little sort of viewing thing down. Yeah, that is working really quite well. And then of course we have the ship. So I showed you the wings are now working, and if I press the button on the back, it should drop a bomb. So that's the whole of this thing working as it should do. It really just seems that there was some misalignment on some of the gears on the main part of that, and taking it apart and rearranging it and putting it back in properly has fixed all of the issues. And then the wings on this was just a sort of a failed piece of plastic, so making a new hook, and that's easily fixed. So this has been a really fun project, and I do need to say a massive thank you to Simon for sending it in. It's always fun to work on things like this because I'm something I've not worked on before, so I have to learn as I go, and the mechanisms inside are quite fascinating. They're a little bit over-engineered, but they are all fixable, and we've ended up with a toy that's really nice and really displayable. If you've enjoyed this video, then why not check out some of my other M.A.S.K projects. I've worked on quite a few of these vehicles over the last year, and they're really very fascinating, always interesting to work on, lots of strange mechanisms and transformable features in them, so do check those out. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.